Jawdar rode a horse. He quickly returned to the palace. Then entered and searched around, but did not find anyone. He returned to his old house and found his mother sitting in front of the door. Mother. Jawdar asked her about what happened, and she told him what had happened. Sometimes he would interrupt her, shouting, and at other times he would slap his hands together in anger, and when the anger was over, his vision was blinded. So he put his hand on his sword. He kept looking at her and remembered his dream. He sighed for a long time and then came back to his senses. Then he held his head and said,
"Why, mother? Didn't I warn you? Why didn't you do what I said? How can I return it now?"
Jawdar mounted his horse and immediately returned to the fairy palace. When he arrived, he narrated to them what had happened while sadness gripped his heart. The fairies took pity on his condition and looked at each other. Then the little girl advised them that they should take Rai to their father. Maybe he knew how to help him, so they agreed. The little fairy brought a big rug. She asked Jawdar to sit on her, and Jawdar asked,
"Is this the flying magic carpet?"
The little fairy laughed and said,
"There is nothing like that. It is an ordinary rug that you tied with rope so that we can carry you on it."
And Jawdar sat on the rug, and the fairies took hold of the ends of the ropes, and they flew off toward the sunset. The journey continued for 2 days until they reached a great palace in front of which were 2 armored guards, from whom only the eyes could see. The fairies landed in front of the palace, and Jawdar was amazed at the greatness of the guards, whose length reaches twice its length. So he asked the little fairy about them.
"Are there huge fairies?"
The little fairy answered him.
"No, these are jinn."
Jawdar said,
"Do the jinn work under your father's command?"
The little fairy smiled and said,
"Our father is from the jinn, and our mother is a fairy. When my father married her, he was banished from the kingdom of the jinn to here."
Jawdar entered with the fairies into a great hall. At the end of it, an old man with a white beard sat on a large chair. The fairies bowed before him in appreciation, and Jawdar realized that he was their father. The old man spoke in a deep voice.
"You shouldn't have brought someone here. What is your excuse, little girls?"
The little fairy answered,
"This is Jawdar that I told you about, father. His wife left with his son. I think she returned to her island, and he came to ask for your advice."
The old man lowered his head slightly, then raised it and said,
"First, I want to thank you for killing that evil wizard. I tried to kill him for more than 200 years, but I could not,"
cried Jawdar in astonishment.
200 years. We don't live that long. Is it possible that you could be wrong?
The old man answered him.
"That demon killed my wife. He burned her body to use her bones in a ritual that would prolong his life. So your answer is that I'm not wrong. Tell me, did you cut off his head?"
Jawdar said,
"Yes, I cut it. I buried him in a place near the palace."
Then the old man said,
"Well done, because I cut off his head several times. But his body comes back and his head returns to its place. But the palace is surrounded by protection from the jinn, so his body cannot enter that area. As for your wife, I cannot help you. Your wife is the daughter of a jinn king, and I am like an average soldier in his kingdom. You see, even if I wanted to mediate on your behalf, it would be useless. Another thing, if your wife arrived with her father, know that she has died because he will never tolerate the crime of her marrying a human being."
Jawdar's eyes widened and he said,
Kill his daughter. This is not possible. What should I do to save her, sir? Help me, please.
The old man thought for a while and then said,
My daughter thinks you're lucky. Let's see if you are. I will write you a letter to the gatekeepers. We will see what happens. Ride on this elephant and he will take you to a cave in a mountain blocked by a large rock. Stand at the rock, introduce yourself loudly, and wait. One of the sheiks will come out to you. Give him the letter and do not speak to him. Then he will come in and you will wait a whole day for them to consult about your matter. If they agree to meet you, the same sheik will emerge for you. And if they refuse, I don't know what will happen to you.
Jawdar took the letter and rode on the elephant. The elephant flew through the sky at great speed. Until he came in front of a large rock, he stood in front of it and called his name. It was only a matter of moments before the rock moved from its place, revealing a cave from which an old man emerged with a white beard that reached his feet. The old man approached Jawdar and silently gave him the letter. The old man took the letter and turned back to the cave. Jawdar waited, and after a day, the cave opened and the same old man came out and motioned to Jawdar to follow him. Jawdar followed old man through the corridors of the cave until they reached a spacious hall. The old man stopped, and Jawdar stopped, and then the old man continued walking until he stopped in his place among 11 old people like him, standing around a large table round in the middle of the hall. The old man spoke in a deep, hoarse voice.
What's your story, young man? What do you want from us?
Jawdar narrated his story to the sheiks from the beginning and continued, saying,
I hope you can help me get my wife and son back. I want nothing more than to have them back.
The old man answered him, saying,
The princess you kidnapped and claims to be your wife. She was the ruler of one of the 4 islands that protected the borders of the gates to the world of the jinn. After her disappearance, she was replaced by her older sister. We have agreed to bring you to the border island on one of the supply ships that we are responsible for and which will depart for me and them. Put it in one of the boxes. When you reach the island, the workers will drop the boxes on the beach. Get out of the box and hide in the forest that quickly faces you. And beware of letting anyone see you, because you will die immediately.
Jawdar headed toward the exit that the old man had indicated. He found in front of him a beach on which was a large ship. So he entered one of the empty boxes and stayed in it until he felt that they were moving him. When the movement outside stopped, Jawdar opened the box and ran quickly towards the forest. Then he hid well under a tree and kept watching the boxes to know who would come to take them. When the night got dark, Jawdar felt movement, so he hid well, searched for the source of the movement, and raised his head to the sky. He saw girls wearing fighter uniforms and covering their faces with masks. They fly in the sky without wings. Jawdar was afraid and hid himself well so that they would not find him.